What's going on, melon farmers? DMac back with the final video before the 10-hour trial release of NHL 22 on the Xbox One, PS4, Xbox Series X and S, and the PS5. I have already got my pre-order and everything all set up. I got it pre-installed on the new Series X. I can't wait for it to come out. Super jacked to see just to see what the gameplay and everything is going to look like. Anyway, I just felt like I'd make one more episode of the DMac show, do episode 2 of the DMac show. Just got done watching the Be a Pro and Franchise Mode deep dive that they did, the EA Sports official channel. Maybe I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. I'm going to have some screenshots and everything from that deep dive of things that I liked, things that I didn't like. We're just going to sit there and chit the old chat about it. So I was, first things last, it seems like for Be a Pro, they added some incentives to stick around with the team longer term. The only issue that I have with that is they did not mention one bit contract negotiations. They didn't mention it at all, but sticking with the team longer term did come up a couple of times where there would be incentives for staying longer wherever you're playing. So it's like, does that mean I'm going to be offered a longer contract on one of those teams? You know, it's like, even with Be a Pro, I know a lot of people would likely be opposed to it, but I think legitimate RFA status and UFA status, I feel like legitimate free agent status should be used in Be a Pro if you're going to add to the realism, add to the immersiveness of this game mode. And obviously you have your agent, but he's not interactive. You know, you can't just go talk to your agent. It's like he comes to you and just tells you for the 300th time that someone wants to, you know, make a documentary about you or write your biography or something, you know, but there's no actual way for you to interact with the agent. And that is quite troublesome to me. But I got a little hopeful when they started talking about the incentives to sticking with the team longer term. But then they didn't mention contracts at all. So it kind of like almost took that hope away again. You know what I mean? So I don't know what to think. I'm super excited for the game to come out. Super excited to see what the gameplay feels like, what the gameplay looks like. I don't know how I feel about X Factors. They mentioned them about 1.5 million times. It was pretty excessive how much they were talking about X Factors and how much freaking, you know, how much emphasis they're really putting on X Factors. And it's like, I don't even know how I feel about them. You know, I haven't played Madden in a long time, but I know a lot of people that do play Madden, and a lot of them really don't like X Factors. A lot of people say that X Factors kind of ruined Madden in the last couple of years. But I just don't know. I just don't know how I feel about that. You know what I mean? Another thing, I know they changed the menus to white menus instead of the dark menus that the last couple of NHL games have had. I think 19, 20, and 21 had the dark menus. I think 18 had a white menu, right? And I did like the look of it for NHL 18, but something I really didn't like when I was watching the deep dive, I think we're going into franchise mode now. That was the only thing. I wasn't so sure about what they're doing with contracts. I imagine it's going to be just more of the same. You know what I mean? Where you get, maybe you're going to get offered your standard 2-year contracts. Like, you know, you get 2 offers from 2 teams for 2 years and that's it forever. Or if you go into one of these storylines, because apparently there is a whole bunch of different storylines that are, I guess, triggered by achievements or something, or you choose them. I don't really know. It was a very boring deep dive, to be 100% honest. It was a pretty incredibly boring deep dive. And so I don't know if you choose, I can't even remember. It was like, you kind of like zone out a little bit. It was like super boring. And so they talked about that, but yeah, when it comes back to the contract thing, it's like they didn't even mention contracts. But I don't know, if you trigger one of those storylines where, you know, they want you to stick around long term. Okay, well, now is that going to trigger a long contract offer from a team? If you get the reputation of being more of a flaky player that likes to move around a lot, you'll get offered shorter contracts or something. It's like, I don't know. One thing for sure, though, because you start as an elite player, right? You have a medium elite potential when you start. Once you make the leap to franchise, that should automatically trigger a team to want max contract length from you. If you're a franchise player, they're not going to offer you 2 years. They're going to offer you 8, and they're really, really going to be, hell bent they're getting you long term. So I think like this is stuff that has needed to be in these games for 10 plus years. you know? It's like, look at how far video games have come, and you still can't even negotiate a contract in the NHL. It's like we still don't even have legitimate free agent status for your pros. If you're in the minors, which they didn't actually mention, yet again, never mentioned whether you can spend a year in the minors, whether because last year you couldn't. And I always loved the fact that you could start as like a 15-year-old or a 16-year-old. I didn't often start as like a 15-year-old, but a lot of times I did start as like a 16-year-old. Because then you can play and play and play and build your attributes and build your player, and you're 80 overall by the time you get drafted, and you're very likely going to go in the top 5. Instead, it's like you play 3 games, you're through those 3 games, you're 67 overall, and you're first overall. You're the first overall pick. Like, no matter what, you're either first or second, and it's all dependent on one interview. And it's like, oh my God, man, come on. Like, this is nonsense. But anyway, yeah, jumping over to the franchise mode thing, I really don't know how I feel about this, man. I saw when they went to the edit line screen, and the white menu does not work in the edit line screen. Not at all. When you've got the green line chemistry bonus bar, it's like you can't even read it. You can, like, I'm being honest, man. It was like, is that a +5? Is that a +3? Is that a 2? I see on the defensive pairings there was a 2. So I don't know if it's for the forwards. You can get like a +1, +3, +5 for defense. I don't know. Is it like +1, +2, +3 or something? Like, I'm not sure how they're working that in. But the colors, it's like that super bright green on the white menu, like, looked awful. You couldn't even read it. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I did not like the look of it. And, I got pretty much no beef with franchise mode. I love franchise mode. With NHL 21, though, the attributes for the prospects were disgraceful. And EA Sports acknowledged that prospect attributes were completely broken for NHL 21. And they acknowledged it very early on. And when they were asked, what are you going to do about it? They said, it'll be fixed next year. So I was like, oh, terrific. But for all the people that have been screaming for roster sharing to be added back into the game, you are in luck. Roster sharing is coming back for NHL 22, but you are going to have to wait until December to get it, which is a crying shame. And I was happy to see in the franchise mode, for the franchise mode, you can start the expansion franchise as the Seattle Kraken, the 32nd team, or you can start your own 33rd team. So I was happy about that, because that was a question that I did ask on forums and stuff like that. Never really got a straight answer, but I imagined something like creating an expansion team. They're not just gonna take that out of the game. That's too many people use that to just take that out of the game. You know what I mean? So you can still make a 33rd franchise, NHL franchise, or you can start as the Seattle Kraken. Like I said, I don't know. I really didn't care for this deep dive all that much. Like when they did for NHL 20, when they did the franchise mode deep dive and everything, I thought it was fantastic. I watched, I was like on the edge of my seat. Even though it was just them going through menus and whatnot, it was like, for this one, I just couldn't seem to get excited about it. It was just one of those things. I just couldn't get excited about it. And then as soon as I saw those menus, I was like, God, this looks terrible. Roster sharing is a big W, though. That's a big W for EA. It's a big L that it took this long, but it's a W nonetheless, even though it's going to take until December for us to actually get it. I don't even know if I'm really going to be using it, but whatever, whatever's clever, man. Regardless, though, the 10-hour trial for NHL 22, I believe I mentioned this right at the beginning of this video, but the 10-hour trial for NHL 22 does drop Thursday. I believe it was 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then you get the 10-hour trial if you have EA Play, and if you've pre-ordered the Deluxe or the X Factor edition, that's what it's called. If you have EA Play, you get the 10-hour trial on Thursday. If you have the X Factor edition, you get the full release of the game on the 12th of October. And if you bought the standard edition, then I believe it's the 15th of October. So you would get it 3 days earlier. Plus you get all your bonus stuff. Like you get Be a Pro perks, you get, I think you get Hut perks, stuff like that, so there's like some incentive to do that. Anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. The deep dive just came out, so I thought it'd be fun to go into detail about that. And then I will see you guys on Thursday for episode 1 of the NHL 22 Be a Pro series. It has been so fun this past year. The channel is almost at 1,000 subscribers, which is pretty wild to me, man. So anyway, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. There's new videos coming all the freaking time. And until next time, you beautiful melon farmers, have a good one.